The letter was in a blue envelope, and it had my name on it, and I almost never found it. That is the part that stays with me. Not what was in it, not what it changed, not the weeks that followed, or the conversations that had to happen, or the slow, unglamorous work of what came after. The part that stays is the almost. The way I stood in my mother's hallway on a Thursday morning, 22 hours after we buried her, still in my coat, still holding my keys, and went to her writing desk for no reason I could have explained. Instinct, muscle memory, the specific gravity of a place that had always been most completely hers. And opened the second drawer and saw it sitting there on top of everything else, slightly separated from the stack, waiting. Claire. Her handwriting. The C slightly larger than the rest. The I dotted with a small round point rather than a sharp one. The specific way she had written my name on permission slips and birthday cards and notes left on the counter my entire life. If I had gone to the kitchen first, if I had started with the boxes, if I had been 60 seconds later and David had been 60 seconds earlier. But I wasn't, and he wasn't, and I found it first. What I didn't know yet was that my brother had already been in that drawer, that he had found the letter the afternoon of her funeral, while I was sitting at home in the clothes I had worn to the graveside, not ready to be anywhere or do anything, and had opened it and read it and decided he needed to manage what was in it before it reached me. What I didn't know yet was that finding it first was the most important thing I would do that year. What I didn't know yet was that my mother had been protecting me, quietly, methodically, without a single word to me or to anyone else who might have told me, for 8 months before she died. That she had discovered what her son was attempting to do and had handled it with the specific, unhurried competence that was the most characteristic thing about her, and had prepared everything I would need, and had placed the evidence exactly where she knew I would eventually look. She had known I would look there. She had known this about me the way she knew things about me, not because I had told her, but because she paid attention. I know all of this now. I am telling it in order. Margaret Claire Holloway was 73 years old when she died on a Tuesday in November, in the early hours of the morning, in the house she had lived in for 40 years. The heart condition had been diagnosed 18 months prior. She told David and me at her kitchen table on a Saturday morning, with coffee, in the specific direct way she delivered everything important, completely, without softening it into something easier to hear, because she believed that the most respectful thing you could do for someone was give them the accurate information and trust them to handle it. She explained what the doctors had said. She explained her treatment plan. She said she was not frightened. I believed her completely, because in 51 years of knowing her, I had never heard her misrepresent her own internal state. She did not perform emotions she was not having, and she did not suppress emotions to make other people more comfortable. She simply reported accurately, which in a person is rarer than it sounds and more valuable than it gets credit for. She had been a high school English teacher for 31 years, American literature, junior and senior year. She taught it with the specific passion of someone who genuinely believed that stories were not decoration or escape, but the primary technology by which human beings made sense of their own experience. And she had been good at it in the way that the best teachers are good at it, which is to say that she had made the students feel that what they thought mattered, that their reading of a text was worth having and worth defending, that the work of interpretation was serious work that a serious person could spend time on. She had raised David and me alone after our father left when I was 9, and David was 12. This was not a fact she discussed with particular weight. It was simply what had been required, and she had done it. She had kept the house. She had managed the money. She had worked full-time and attended every school event and cooked dinner most nights and taken us to the library every Saturday morning with the democratic conviction that the library was not optional. She had built the brokerage account over 30 years of consistent, unglamorous saving. Not large amounts, but consistent ones, every month, with the patience of someone who understands that the large things are assembled from small ones and who shows up for the small ones without requiring applause. Her love was precise. That is the word I come back to. Not effusive, precise. It showed itself in attention rather than declaration. It remembered the specific thing you had said 6 months ago that revealed what you were actually worried about and addressed that thing rather than the surface version. It noticed when you were not quite yourself before you had noticed it yourself. It showed up for the small things because it understood that the small things were where life actually happened. She wrote everything down, had written everything down since she was 15. Journals, letters, notes to herself in the small notebook she kept in every room of the house. The writing desk was full of it. Decades of documentation in her neat, specific handwriting. The record of a woman who took her own experience seriously enough to preserve it. The letter she left me was 4 pages long. She had dated it, the way she dated everything. 6 weeks before she died. I found it on a Thursday morning, and I read it standing up, in my coat, with my keys still in my hand. The first page was her voice, the specific rhythm and cadence of the way she began letters, which I recognized immediately, and which hit me with the full physical force of something I was never going to hear in real time again. I turned the page carefully. The way you handle something you understand is fragile, not in its material, but in its meaning. The second page was where the shape of the letter changed. She wrote about a visit, 8 months before she died. She gave the exact date, the way she gave everything. David had come on a Saturday afternoon with a folder of documents and had wanted to discuss the house. He had presented a proposal to refinance, a financial optimization, he had called it. Favorable rate, smart timing, access to equity. He had explained the numbers carefully, and he had been, she wrote, very prepared. The way he is when he has been thinking about something for a long time before bringing it. I recognized it. He used to do this as a boy, before asking for something he wasn't sure I would agree to. She had not agreed immediately. She had asked questions. Specific ones, in the direct way she had of making clear that she intended to understand something completely before she acted on it. She had asked about the terms, the timeline, the documents, and in the documents she had noticed something. Her name was listed as sole owner of the property. Correct? It had been solely in her name for 40 years. But in a secondary field, in the section describing post-refinancing ownership structure, David's name had been inserted. Co-owner, 50% interest. She asked about it. David explained it was standard. A technical requirement of the refinancing process. A formality, something that changed nothing about her rights. He used the word formality twice. She had noted this. She had smiled. She had said she needed some time to review everything and thanked him for coming and walked him to the door. Then she had called Patricia. Patricia Ossie had handled my mother's legal affairs for 15 years. She had drafted the will, managed the property documentation when the mortgage was paid off, advised on the brokerage account structure. My mother trusted her in the specific way she trusted anyone, completely, and because they had earned it by being accurate when accuracy was inconvenient. Patricia had reviewed David's documents. She had explained what they meant, in terms my mother described as very clear and not technical at all, which is exactly what I needed and what I asked for. Adding David as co-owner was not a standard refinancing requirement. It was not a formality. It was a legal transfer of 50% ownership interest in the property. It would mean David owned half the house. Upon my mother's death, David's half would pass directly to him, outside the estate, bypassing the will, bypassing any equal distribution she had intended. My share, the share she had always told us both would be divided equally, would be reduced to whatever remained after David's direct ownership interest was accounted for. In practical terms, David would receive the house or the majority of its value. I would receive whatever was left. My mother sat with this information. She described sitting with it in the letter. She had gone home from Patricia's office, made tea, sat at the kitchen table for a long time, and thought about her son, and what he had done, and what it meant about him, and what she intended to do about it. She did not describe this in terms of rage or devastation. She described it in the specific, organized language of a woman examining a fact and deciding clearly how to respond. "I thought about him," she wrote, "as he was at 12 and at 20, and now. I thought about what it costs a person to do something like this, not the legal cost, the internal one. What you have to have already decided about yourself and about the people around you before you can walk into your mother's house with those documents in a folder." I felt sad about that. I still do. But sadness is not the same as helplessness, and I knew exactly what I needed to do. She had documented everything. Every conversation with David about the house after that afternoon, every visit, every phone call, every reference to the refinancing or the property or the estate. Date, time, summary. Exact quotes where she remembered them. She had built a precise and thorough record of 8 months of interactions and had given all of it to Patricia. She had revised her will, specifically, thoroughly, with every protection Patricia could recommend and a few she asked for specifically. The house to be sold upon her death and proceeds divided equally. The brokerage account divided equally. Every asset accounted for, every distribution specified, every potential point of contest identified and addressed in the language. And then she had written me this letter so that I would know what had happened and why the protections were there. "I am telling you this," she wrote, "not because I want you to be angry at your brother, though you may be, and I understand completely why you would be. I am telling you because you have a right to know what happened in your own family, and because I want you to have this information while I can still be the one to give it to you. I don't want you to find out from a document, or from Patricia, or from David in some version he has shaped to protect himself. I want it to come from me. I want you to know that I saw it. I want you to know that I handled it. I want you to know that I did not let it take anything from the time I had left. And I want you to not let it take anything from yours either, if you can manage that. I believe you can. I have always known what you were capable of, perhaps better than you have known yourself." I read this paragraph 4 times. I read it until the words were no longer words on paper, but something else, something that lived in a different place than the page. Then I sat down on the floor. I want to try to describe what it is like to read something like this. You are sitting on the floor of a house that still smells like your mother? The candle she always burned in the kitchen. The specific warm combination of wood and something I cannot name precisely that I had known my entire life. It has been 22 hours since you watched her coffin go into the ground. You are wearing the coat you put on this morning to do a practical task, and the coat is still on because you have not gotten that far yet. You are holding 4 pages of paper in her handwriting, the specific tilt of the letters, the way she forms her G's, the small corrections where she wrote over the original rather than starting fresh, because she did not like to waste paper, even in a personal letter. You have been reading this handwriting your entire life. You read it the first time for the facts, the second time for the shape of it, the sequence of decisions she had made, the timeline, the specific quality of attention she had brought to a situation she had every reason to be devastated by. The third time slowly, the way she had always told me to read anything important, not for the surface meaning, but for the structure beneath it. What I felt was not what I expected. I expected rage. The rage was there, present, real, fully available. What I felt underneath it was something I have been trying to find the right word for ever since. The closest I can get is recognition. The specific sensation of understanding someone completely for the first time. Not because you have received new information, but because the information you already had has been placed in different light, and you can suddenly see its full shape. My mother had seen what was happening in her own family. She had handled it without drama, without confrontation, without making the last 8 months of her life into a conflict that would have consumed everything she had left to spend. She had spent those months having dinner with me, and calling me on Tuesday evenings and asking about my work and telling me about her garden and laughing at things that were funny. She had been completely present for everything that mattered. She had given me the information and shielded me from the weight of carrying it at the same time. She had threaded a needle that I would not have known how to thread. And then I heard the front door open. David was in the entryway with a cardboard box, the dark green jacket he wore for practical tasks. He had come to begin going through her things, the way we had agreed. I turned around, and I saw, in the half-second before his face arranged itself into something prepared, his expression land on the letter in my hand. Not on me, on the letter. "You found it?" he said. Not "what's that?" Not "what are you reading?" Not even "what are you doing on the floor?" "You found it." 3 words that contained everything. The acknowledgement that he knew exactly what it was, that he had expected it to be there, that he had been operating since yesterday afternoon on the assumption that he would be the one to manage this moment. "You read this," I said, not a question. "Claire, you came here yesterday," I said. "After the service, while I was at home. You came here, and you went to her desk, and you opened this drawer, and you read a letter my mother addressed to me." I looked at the drawer behind me, still slightly open as I had found it. "You read it the day we buried her." He set the box down. He went through several expressions, the specific sequence of a man cycling through available responses and finding that none of them are adequate to the moment. He settled on something that was not quite denial and not quite acknowledgement. "I was going to give it to you," he said. "When?" I said. "When we had a chance to talk about it." "You were going to give me my mother's letter to me?" I said carefully. "After you had the opportunity to prepare what you were going to say about it?" He didn't answer. Which was the answer? "Leave," I said. "Take the box. I will call you. Not today." He picked up the box. He walked to the door. He closed it behind him. I sat on the floor of my mother's hallway until the November light shifted, reading the letter again and again, and feeling underneath the grief and the anger and the complicated sorrow of what my brother had attempted. Something else. Something that took me a long time to identify, and that I eventually understood, was gratitude. For a woman who had seen clearly, acted completely, and loved me enough to make sure I had what I needed before she left. Patricia Osei answered on the second ring. "Claire," she said, "I've been expecting your call." My mother had told her, had left instructions, had prepared this too, the way she prepared everything, in advance, completely, so that when the moment arrived, everything was already in its place. Patricia confirmed everything in the letter. The revised will, the documentation, the specific legal protections named and explained. The clean estate, no encumbrances, no unauthorized transfers, nothing touched. "She made absolutely certain," Patricia said. "Yes," I said. "She always did." "There's something else," Patricia said. "She left a personal note for you. Not a legal document. She asked me to read it to you when you called." I sat very still in the car in the driveway. Outside, the November afternoon was the specific flat gray of that month. Not dark, not light, the particular colorless quality of a sky that has decided to be honest. "Okay," I said. Patricia read it. 3 sentences. "I am not going to write them here because they belong to me, and they are going to stay with me. But I will tell you what they were in the way you can describe a shape without giving away its contents. They were the most specific thing she had ever said to me. They told me what she saw in me, in the precise, unembellished language she used when she wanted something to land and stay. They were the sentences of a woman who had sat down 6 weeks before her death and thought about what her daughter would need to hear on the day she found this letter, and had written those sentences, and had trusted Patricia to read them at exactly the right moment. She had known what I would need. She had prepared it. She had been paying attention, as she had always been paying attention, and she had left the evidence. I cried in the car in her driveway, properly, for the first time since Tuesday, without managing it. Then I stopped. I thanked Patricia. I asked what came next. She told me everything. I wrote it all down. I called my friend Donna that evening. Donna Marsh had been my closest friend since we were 24, and she was now a family mediator 12 years into a practice that had given her the specific quality of someone who has sat with people in the most difficult conversations of their lives for a long time and has emerged not hardened, but clarified. She told you what she actually thought. She did not perform comfort when what you needed was accuracy. She came over. She read the letter. I showed her, which I hadn't planned, but which felt right. And when she finished, she folded it carefully and handed it back and sat with it for a moment. "Your mother was extraordinary," she said. "Yes," I said. "What do you want?" Not what are you going to do. What do you want? The question underneath the question, which is always the more important one. "I want to not lose my brother," I said. "And I want to not pretend that what he did can be absorbed and moved past without being addressed. Both of those things are true at the same time, and I don't know how to hold them." "You hold them by not collapsing them into each other," Donna said. "By not deciding that keeping the relationship means you have to minimize what happened, or that refusing to minimize it means you have to end it. Both things can stay true. The work is figuring out whether David is capable of meeting the version of you that holds both of them." She was right. She was almost always right about these things, which was why I called her first. I spent 2 weeks before I called David, doing what I always do when I need to act on something important. I gathered information until I had the complete picture. I read everything Patricia sent me. Every document, the full will, the record of conversations my mother had kept, the specific language of the protections in place. I understood the estate so completely that by the time I sat across from my brother, there was nothing he could say that I hadn't already seen, and nothing he could obscure that I hadn't already mapped. I also did the harder work. I thought about David, not about what he had done, which was the easier work, but about who he was and how he had arrived at the place where he could walk into our mother's house with those documents in a folder. David was 54 years old, and he had spent most of his adult life in a quiet war with his own circumstances. He had expected more than he had gotten, professionally, financially, in the general accounting of how his life was supposed to look. And he had managed this expectation for decades through small, private rationalizations that had accumulated into a justification he could no longer see as a justification because he had been living inside it for too long. The inheritance had become, in his mind, a correction, the thing that would balance the ledger he had been keeping secretly for 30 years. He had told himself this story so many times and in so many private iterations that the story had become invisible to him, had become simply the way things were. He was not a monster. I say this clearly because it is true and because I think the truth of it matters. He was a man who had done something genuinely wrong inside an invisibility he had constructed over decades. Both of those things are simultaneously true, and I needed to hold both of them if I was going to have the conversation that needed to happen. We met on a Wednesday afternoon in a coffee shop that was equidistant from both our houses. He was already there when I arrived, early, which told me he understood the weight of what was coming. Dark green jacket, coffee he hadn't touched. I sat down. I ordered tea. I waited for it to arrive. Then I told him what I knew. All of it, in order. The letter, word for word from memory, Patricia. The documentation my mother had built. The revised will. Every protection that was in place. The clean estate. I told it without embellishment, without accusation beyond the facts themselves, in the organized, direct way I had watched my mother handle difficult things my entire life. He listened without interrupting. He was very still. The specific stillness of someone receiving information they already know, and experiencing the discomfort of hearing it stated plainly by someone else. When I finished, he said, "I'm sorry." "Tell me what you're sorry for," I said. "Specifically, not generally." He looked at the table. He was quiet for a moment that had the quality of someone gathering something rather than avoiding it. Then he looked up. "The documents," he said. "What I tried to do with the house, taking more than my share before she was gone." A pause. "And the letter, reading it, on the day of the funeral?" "Yes," I said. "Both of those. Now tell me what you understand about what the second one cost." He thought about it with the honest effort of someone trying to be accurate about something they would prefer not to examine closely. "I was trying to get ahead of it," he said. "Have a version ready, a version of the situation, a version of myself that I could present to you before you had your own version." "Yes," I said. "I knew what was in it," he said. "I knew what she had written, and I thought if I could talk to you first, I could shape how you received it." "And now you're sitting across from me," I said, "and I received it the way she intended me to receive it, from her, without your version." He was quiet. "She didn't confront you," I said. "She found out what you were doing. She handled the legal situation completely and thoroughly, and she never said one word to you about it for 8 months. She came to dinner. She called you every Sunday. She was completely herself, present, warm, completely herself, and she was carrying what she knew the entire time." I looked at him. She decided the confrontation wasn't worth what it would cost her. She spent those months the way she wanted to spend them, and she left me the letter so that I would have the information without having to watch her carry it. He looked like a man arriving somewhere he had been traveling toward without knowing it. "She was better than I deserved," he said. "Probably," I said. "Most people are better than we deserve if we're honest about it. The question is what you do with that." "I want to fix this," he said. "Then here's what that looks like," I said. "We find a therapist, separately at first, then together. We have the conversations that need to be had, with help, in a way that doesn't require either of us to pretend we're somewhere we're not. You sit with what you did. The full version, not the version where circumstances led you here, but the version where you made a series of choices, until you understand it completely. And I don't absorb this. I don't file it away and manage it because addressing it is uncomfortable. Mom handled the legal situation. She left the relationship for me, and I am going to handle it honestly." "Okay," he said. "I'll do all of that." "One more thing," I said. "She loved you. She was present with you for every one of those 8 months. What she did, the documentation, the will, the letter, that was not her withdrawing love. That was her being competent about reality while continuing to give you everything she had. She didn't let what you tried to do take the love away. She just made sure you couldn't take the house." David looked at me for a long time. His eyes were wet. He didn't try to say anything, which was exactly right. We got a therapist. Separately for 4 months, then jointly, then separately again when the joint work had gotten as far as it could and the individual work needed to continue. It was not clean. These things are not clean. There were months that felt like circling the same point without landing. Sessions that surfaced things neither of us had planned to look at. Conversations that required everything I had and left me exhausted in the specific productive way of work that has actually moved something. I learned things about myself that were not comfortable. The useful things never are. I learned that I had been managing David for most of my adult life, making room, filling gaps, absorbing his particular quality of grievance in small doses so that it never accumulated into something that required addressing. I had known, without naming it, that there was something in him that made me uneasy, and I had managed that unease by not looking at it directly. I had been protecting myself from the discomfort of seeing my brother clearly by choosing not to look. This had not been kindness to David. It had been avoidance that I had dressed as accommodation. And the cost, borne not by me but by my mother, was 8 months of her carrying alone what she had discovered. My mother's house sold in the spring. A young family with a 2-year-old and another on the way. I stood on the porch on the day of the closing and watched them walk through the rooms and felt something complicated and specific. Grief for the place, and underneath it the quiet, solid piece of a thing completed correctly. The proceeds split exactly as she had specified, down to the decimal. The brokerage account split exactly. Every dollar she had built over 30 years of consistent, unglamorous, patient work went where she had said it would go. Protected by the documentation, the will, the quiet and complete actions of a woman who had seen what was coming and had handled it without panic, without confrontation, without taking anything from the time she had left. I used my share to buy a smaller house on a quiet street with a garden that needed work and more light than I had expected. In the second room, which I use as an office, there is a writing desk against the window. Plain, functional, with good light from the left. In the second drawer, I keep the good pens, an address book maintained by hand, a small stack of pale blue envelopes, the kind you buy at a drugstore in a pack of 20, with a slight texture to the paper. I have not written anything on them yet. I keep them for the weight of them, the specific weight of something prepared carefully, by hand, by someone who believed that putting something into words was a form of taking it seriously. She took everything seriously. She took me seriously. She saw what was happening, and she handled it, and she left me a letter so that I would know, and she trusted me with the rest, and I have been trying every day since to be worth that trust. There is a line from one of the books she taught every year. She could quote pages of it from memory, which I had always found slightly alarming and now find deeply characteristic. It is about seeing clearly, about the cost of it and the necessity of it, about looking at things as they are rather than as you need them to be. She had underlined it in her copy. One clean line, no annotation. She had always believed the underlining was sufficient record of the thought. I keep the book on my desk, beside the pale blue envelopes. Some mornings before I start work, I open it to that page. I read the line. I think about her saying it out loud to rooms full of 17-year-olds for 31 years, meaning it specifically rather than generally, meaning it as instruction. See clearly. Not because it is comfortable, because it is the only thing that is actually useful. I want it to come from me. It had, it does, it always will.